So my name is Scott Simpson. I was born in Australia to a Haligonian and a Newfoundlander, and then I grew up in the state of New York, and came to Halifax when I was at a high school and 18, 19 years old in the 90s, and I have been here ever since. And I tell you that little personal bio because I sort of thought about what I was going to talk about here tonight, and I thought, well, I don't want to talk about choices, about making decisions, and that little personal bio is because part of those choices were not made by me, but I chose to come to Halifax. I have roots here and in Nova Scotia, but I chose to come here as a teenager. I chose to go to college here, and I chose to stay here after I finished university and work in the film and television industry. This was my decision, this experience over the last 2 months has really made me think a lot about how decisions are made. Both my own decisions and why I made them, and why others make the decisions that they make. Before I do that, I wasn't going to tell this story, but because they're supposed to be telling stories, I'll tell a story about this. It's going to be the one I think that stands out for me personally when I look back on this many years from now. And it sort of picks up from where Mark left off. Mark told the story about the budget day, which will also be, I can still actually see the expression on him when he walked out of the room. We said, well, it's not good. And he's like, yeah, no, it's worse than that. It's like, it was a very intense time. Anyway, I was kind of recruited, if you will, or sort of brought into the kind of inner circle to help to respond to this. And at the time, we didn't know what was going to happen. And my wife, I have 2 young children. Susanna and our sons are friends. They're 6, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. And my wife works in the music industry, and she happened to be at ECMA's in St. John's at the time of the budget. And so I'm like frantically texting her like when we got the news, and she's sitting around with a bunch of music industry insiders too, and they're wondering what's going on, and it was a very intense, few hours, few days, few weeks really. But anyway, a couple days of this intensity, and my wife's away in St. John's, and I'm dealing with this potential, like, is my career over? Is my career over? Is my community threatened? Like, it could be a complete disaster. And I had the kids, and the kids are kind of like, they're absorbing the stress, but they don't know what the hell's going on. At 4 and 6, they're just like, I want to watch TV. What's for dessert? And I'm trying to manage them, and the phone's ringing like crazy, and there's 65 emails every 3 minutes, and it's like, and I hit the wall. I don't remember. Budget day was like Thursday or something. I think it might have been Friday or Saturday. Was it Thursday? Okay, so then I think it was Saturday. I hit the wall. I was in my kitchen, and the kids are buzzing around, and I can't focus, and I look in the fridge, and there's no food. I mean, there's food, but there's no food, right? It's like the kids don't, and they're like, oh, we're hungry. And it's like, no, there's no food, and I broke down, and I slumped down on the floor, up against the kitchen cabinet, and I burst into tears, and I'm a dramatist, right? It's like, we're dramatic. I'm thinking, I can't feed my kids anymore. The government is starving my children. My wife's never coming back from Newfoundland. So, and they looked at me, and the kids are, they're pretty amazing with their intuition, and they started, what's wrong, Daddy? My son's got his hand on my back, and I pulled up the iPad, and I FaceTimed my wife in St. John's at ECMA. So I'm like, you got to explain to them what's going on. I can't talk to them. I can't talk to my kids right now. And so I put the iPad on the butcher block in our kitchen, and I'm sitting on the floor like, oh my God. And the kids are looking at their mom on the iPad, and she's trying to explain to them what's happening to our lives. And now when I think about it, it's kind of funny. It's really kind of ridiculous. And she said to them, she said, Dad, it's like Dad. He's like he's playing in a game. It's like he's in a game. He's like on a sport team, and he's been playing against somebody, the other team, and the other team just told him that they've changed the rules and he can't win, but he has to play anyway. And I was, okay, that kind of sums it up for now. And my daughter started crying, and she and it was suddenly there was they're still like I just haven't solved the problem that there was no food in the house and everything, but it was I thought that moment for me emotionally really encapsulates how I think I was certainly feeling in those early days, and that's probably again the most impactful story I can tell about my experience personally with this, and I wasn't really plan on talking about it, but I'll tie it in. I don't think it's contrived to say that, we were in crisis mode from really March 25th. I mean, we were in crisis mode, all right? And none of us are career politicians. We're not trained. We're filmmakers. We're storytellers, and that served us well. But we're not experienced in the world of political lobbying and advocacy. So what we had to rely on were instincts, and it's interesting to be. And I think some of you may have. I've written a few things, Facebook posts and things like that along the way. And one of the things that I said, I think I've said it a couple times now, is as Maritimers, we're used to, we're sort of our culture. Part of our culture is built on crisis management, dealing with crisis. That in crisis we show our true colors. And in a situation like this, that's kind of what. That's what we did. We were dealing with a crisis, and so we relied on our instincts, and our instincts kicked in, and we just kept going. And I think that one of the reasons why we were able to do what we did in response is because our instincts are really good. Our instincts are to stand and to fight. Our instincts are not to leave, but to stay. Our instincts are we strongly believe in what we do, that it has value, and we strongly believe in Nova Scotia. And when those instincts are challenged, or when you're challenged and you respond with your instincts, I think you can do great things. And I am just to sort of come back to my little personal story. I don't know why I have some idea why I stayed in Halifax, or why I came to Halifax, and why I stayed in Nova Scotia in my 20s and had opportunities to leave. And most of it was an instinct. Most of it was just a belief that I wanted to be here. And it's hard to articulate that. It's hard. You can't back that up with numbers. It's very difficult. It's just sort of something you strongly believe in. And I've thought about how the role that I've played and Mark's played, and some of us who have been on the front lines, if you will, is similar in a way to politicians. And Mark talked about empathy and how we develop empathy through this process. It's something certainly you have to consider. And I've one of the things that I've sort of thought about, and one thing that's kept me up sometimes late at night is. I have myself. I have my own instincts. I have what I believe, my own opinions, my own attitudes that have been shaped by my experience and my belief system, my parents, my friends, my teachers, my mentors. There's also this board. In Screen Nova Scotia, we have a board, and the board is a collection of very important stakeholders, also with strong opinions and mandates and interests, and et cetera. And then we have this constituency, this membership, is however many hundreds of people that we represent. And along the way, I've often, at a few key moments, I've thought, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do what I think is right? Am I supposed to do what the board has discussed we should do, or am I supposed to do what I think that the 600 or 1,200 or however many people I represent are supposed to do? And I think that's the challenge that most politicians face, and I think that, to me, where things often go wrong is when when you're faced with a challenge that is where your instinct and your own personal belief or where you stand is in deference to what the people that you're representing want, and that's a real. It's very complicated, and I actually don't know that I've learned yet how to navigate those rough waters when those times come. I personally believe that for most of my life, I've felt better, or I've been more successful following my instincts, and I've always regretted not, but I can also appreciate how a leader feels responsibility towards the people that they represent. And so what you do, I think, is you have to really look around you and say, well, who have I surrounded myself with? Who are the people that I work with? Building a team that you trust and that you feel you can effectively represent is very important. I think that experience for me and for us has been, in a way, I've been able to kind of understand, or I can see how complicated it can be in a political power to make decisions that align what you believe in and what you think is right and what you think people want you to do. And I think that the key thing, the last thing I'll say is that I strongly believe that the root of all evil is bad communication. Communication is, I can sort of, and all the things that have sort of gone wrong in my life, I feel like there's a communication problem somewhere. Somebody didn't get the message, they got the wrong message, we're in a sort of social media dominated world where I think communication is actually, it's elementary to say that it's exploded and that there's new forms of communication. It's, that's really changing the way we communicate. But I also think it's a real danger when we share things, we post things, we like things, we say things that we don't actually know if they're actually true or not. We're very quick to say, oh, hey, did you hear about this thing? I saw this online, or I read this thing, and we just do it. We share it, and then we debate it kind of afterwards. And you look, an extreme example is how many times has a celebrity died that actually didn't die, And it's like, did anybody ask them? And I think that we've seen that happen with this government and with government is that they're making, that things are happening, and decisions are being made, information is being shared that's not correct, that's not been vetted. And I think we also, as a society, need to be more diligent about the way we vet the things we say, the way that we share information. And I think that with that, we can then make decisions using our instincts that are based on intelligence that's true and accurate. And that's my feeling about how to move forward. And that's it.